the World Supercross stuff, we don't have a series where we don't know where the actual schedule is. I've heard multiple things that it's going to start basically like end of September and go almost into May. So it's going to be fairly long, where you couldn't race the World Supercross series and the AMA or Feld Supercross series. So you'd have to pick one or the other. And then I've also heard things about like no factory teams are allowed, and the most I could think of is because it's invite only, some of the teams like Star might not want their riders to go over, and they might write it in their contracts as that little caveat to say, hey, you can't join another series. These are the series that we're racing. You're contracted with us. You can't go ride with another team. I mean, have you guys heard anything? I just find it very odd that I think it would be more of a factor for these guys to potentially be going somewhere, but it's on such a hush-hush, nothing has been released.
It's not really that hush-hush. It's on their site. They tell you they're doing, 4 rounds this year, and then next year they're doing a full series starting in June, but it will be concluding in November. So, and I'm trying to reach out Adam Bailey, who runs the
so
promotion
you're saying
group.
It's going from September to November.
It's a short season
this year. Yeah,
it's a short season this year, and then a full season next year.
And
Correct.
You're finding this from the FIM.
They have it on their website, and then I'm also trying to get a hold of, and Adam Bailey, if you watch this, please get a hold of me. I've been trying to do an interview and promote and find out what exactly is going on and how all this is going to work. I love what they're doing, and yeah, I just want to know more about it, like you.
Well, and look at help me out, Chris, owner of Smart Tops, not Genero.
Mike Genova,
thank you. He's very vocal in saying we're pursuing it. We want to go World Supercross. We feel like the United States series does not lend itself to those that are trying to invest and grow the sport. They're completely open. They'll go through the bid process. They'll allocate 5 riders, whatever the
Here, Cooksey, I'm just going to block your face.
Whatever they require as a necessity, they're willing to go after it.
You'll see later.
You're such a dick, Johnny.
I mean, I guess I could block mine because you guys.
You can block mine. It's fine. Nobody needs to stare at my mug.
Hey, Chris, you ever notice you and I are having a conversation and Johnny's like trying to?
Yeah, I did. I looked down. I'm like, what is he doing?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Google something, Johnny.
I am. I'm trying to find the damn.
It's FIM World Supercross, Johnny.
It's WSChampionship.com is what it is.
I think you're on the wrong site. Does it say FIM World Supercross Championship?
Motorcycle Federale something.
Anyway, Coach. So,
dude, it's so hard to find the damn series. But anyway, that was a major tangent that really didn't need to happen.
No, it does need to be factored in though, Johnny, because you bring up a good point. I mean, not to be negative Nelly, but if that World Supercross series squats down on the Outdoor Nationals, do we start to see a different respect towards the privateers this year where, I don't know how many OEMs are going to agree to go World Supercross? What does that do to the Outdoor Nationals? They're getting paid to go racing versus spending money. I mean, there's a lot your point's well taken.
With the costs going up with your licenses, I know for those of you that don't know, if you watch the other videos, it's like $375 now for your motocross license, where when I was racing, it was right around $300, and then I believe it went to like $350, now $375. Yeah, $25 isn't a whole lot, but when the purse isn't growing, it's.
Now, are you talking entry fee? Because I thought the license was $500.
No, just Damn it! Now I'm gonna have to be doing some more Googling.
Sorry. Okay, I was told the license is $500 and the entry fees were $350, but up to $375 now. Either way, sorry, I'll just shut up so he stops Googling.
Yeah, no, the license is $375, right now. So the licensing fee has gone up, and it's just there might be something where motocross turns into more of the privateer series where. Because all the factory guys are just going to Supercross. I know we kind of talked about that before, and I know we're going on a tangent here, but it is something to talk about because what is more fun to watch? Is it Supercross or is it motocross? For the diehards, they're going to say motocross, and I get it because that's what you grew up doing. But if you're a new fan trying to get involved in a sport, you want to see in a stadium. It's just everything worth seeing is in a stadium, and plus all the big jumps and everything. It's all right there in front of you. Where a motocross, it's very difficult if you were to go to a race. You have to sit on a little corner and you see part of the track, and then it's hot and it's sweaty, and Supercross is just more entertaining there. So, I mean, I guess you guys probably don't argue with me.
No. My question with you, you say the outdoor nationals, like if the manufacturer pulled out Honda, Kawasaki, KTM, if they pull out as a privateer series, but there's no money. So essentially you're talking about a really good looking local race.
I guess. Yeah. I mean, I hope that's not what happens, but something needs to change innovation-wise.
This is a direct product of the poor business skills that they've done on this and not actually giving back. And if you go to Cooksey Media Facebook, I got an article about why Glenn Helen's not there and how much money is taken by MX Sports and how little is given back to the riders. Hold on. And if they had been giving a percentage of the take to the riders for an extended amount of time, we would have a solid series where you wouldn't be 100% dependent on Honda, Kawasaki, KTM. You'd still have a show. You'd still have guys that want to come compete.
And Cooksey, I know you have like a hard, here's that word hard again, kind of vendetta with how it's run, but that's how it's run even in Supercross as well. We just don't have potentially as much information when it comes to Supercross. Like there's nothing really being changed. That's why there's the whole World Supercross to begin with, is they're trying to do something completely different from what Feld and MX Sports has done. Not saying that it's wrong because they've gotten away with it, and why would they change it? It's kind of like you get something for free and then you're expected to pay for it. You're not going to
I don't have a vendetta. I genuinely just care so much about the sport and the riders and the things they have to go through that I want to see it become a professional sport where everybody can make money. The promoters, I'm telling you, if these guys would have done this a long time ago, much like what World Supercross is doing, and they gave a profit share back like every other professional sport, instead of treating the riders, essentially these riders are customers, Johnny. These are customers to MX Sports. You have to pay to race.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you, and that's where I'm talking with the whole innovation is potentially what World Supercross is doing is it's going to put pressure back to either innovate or die, like we saw what happened with Kodak and blah, 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 thinking, oh, hey, digital pictures aren't going to be a freaking thing, and then now, we have this kind of stuff. So I hope it does change, and personally, if I'm an outsider looking in, even Supercross. Sometimes Supercross is hard to watch because it's like 3.5 hours. But however, they're heat races, 2 LCQs, or you've got 2 heat races, 2 LCQs, 2 main events. There's a lot of like different little racing going on where 30 minutes of moto is kind of a lot. I mean, it honestly, do you think it might be better for TV and the fans in general? Maybe not the spectators at the actual event, but truthfully, I feel like you should be moving more towards the television side of things because you'll get more viewers than you do riders or fans just at the facility there, that potentially changing the format to where it's almost like Supercross, where you have the heat races and then the smaller main events and just cut things down so it's more exciting. Because what happens in a 450 moto? A lot of action happens inside the first 10 minutes, and then we kind of have riders kind of run away with it, and then you might fall asleep, you might not, because I don't know. That's just kind of where I feel that potentially changing the format, but nobody wants to change the format because that's been the way it's been forever. I know it used to be 3 motos, and then it went to 2, but maybe it's time to start thinking about this more as not so much racing, but entertainment. And how do you make it more entertaining by potentially, hey, would it be cool to have each 4 motos that were 10 minutes each? So you basically get the same amount of time, but you've got different. I mean, I'm going on a complete tangent.
Johnny, no, Johnny, I'm with you on all of that and making it entertainment and getting more viewers and getting more money. But that money has to go to some of the, like, it has to be split with the entertainers to survive.
Well, along that thread of thought, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, aren't the teams getting paid to show up and all expenses are paid?
For the World Supercross?
Yes.
I don't know the specifics, and that's why I've been trying to get a hold of Adam Bailey. But there's definitely some sort of
there's a huge
there.
hedge fund that is in control of the World Supercross. They've got $243 billion of assets under management. So it's totally being directed kind of towards F1 to making it grow. And then again, whoever has the money kind of makes the rules and can control everything. So if you're looking in a tier scenario, is it going to be World Supercross, then Feld, then MX Sports in motocross? Or
well, this is where the listeners on this show need to pay attention to what's going on in the PGA. You have that Saudi Arabia SIV series that's rivaling PGA. This weekend, there's a $25 million tournament. So it's the exact same scenario. You've got a couple of the key players that are starting to say, hey, there's some credibility over here. Here's the problem. It doesn't, and on the American side of things, the three of us are not trying to throw anybody into the bus. We're just trying to get a conversation going. Mm-hmm. The problem that you run into is if any of the PGA players go play in the Saudi Arabia series, they cannot come back to the PGA. So now what's happening is you're being forced to make an executive decision. You have to take a calculated risk to say, who's going to manage their series better for the longevity of my career? $25 million this weekend, that's great. What if they dissolve in 18 months? PGA's been around for a while. They go another 10 years. You may have made more money in 18 months than you would have made in 10 years over here. Well, now you're given the opportunity. Here's the problem. It's not an opportunity for you to make a decision. You're giving an ultimatum. Do the PGA or do the CVI? That's it.
And I believe there's a lot of they're paying a lot of players to even go over there to compete too.
But that's the key. They entice them with the money to come over, but you can't go back. So you're making a calculated risk. Let's say your son graduates from college. He may be able to go another 10 years in CVI. He's guaranteed he can go 10 years of PGA. It's been around for years. What calculated risk are you going to take? Risk return payoff, a new series. Now, to your point though, Johnny, billions and billions of dollars. I've seen a couple numbers passed around. How much money is being guaranteed for the World Supercross series? There's a certain amount of money that I've heard has been allocated.
I've heard $50 million over like 5 years or something is what I heard.
All right, I don't know the math, but $50 million over 5 years. How does that compare to what the riders are being offered right now? And I'm asking because I don't know. I haven't looked at the numbers. I think it's quite. I mean, that's a big number.
You guys can't see this, but I can because I'm googling. Cooksey, I'm covering your face again.
Cover it again.
50 million team and rider support over 5 years. The richest prize purse in history of Supercross with $250,000 for grabs at each event. What is the purse again at like a normal Supercross? It's what, like $100,000 maybe?
Right around $100,000.
Yeah,
for both classes.
For both classes,
which is just silly. So I guess the point we're talking about is you've got. If you're like a privateer where you're like, hey, I'm going to make no money whatsoever, and then now you can entice me with some money.
You're going to pay money, not make no money. You're going to pay money to go race versus get paid to show up.
Very, very important piece of the puzzle here. And in order to combat that, dude, when you go to sign for your license, when it comes to Supercross, you get the Futures Motocross, that whole PED disclaimer is now going to have another disclaimer that says you will not be allowed to go to any other series. We basically own the rights to you at that. That's the way that like a political body would enforce try not to lose their riders. And I think that's the next thing that we've got going on. But as the World Supercross, what you would be trying to do is you'd be trying to get the ACs, the Eli Tomac's, the big names to come over here, especially if you're at like kind of the downward of your career. Why wouldn't you get somebody like a Roxon to move over?
Marvin Musquin,
exactly. In order to, even if they have to sign like, hey, I'm never going to race Supercross again, it's like, okay, well, tough. I'm going to retire in 2 years anyway. I'm going to go make a bunch of money here, where this isn't golf, where this isn't something you can do in your 60s. This is something where you're incredibly lucky if you can even make it after your 30s into racing. So I think we're going to have a couple very interesting years ahead, which is exciting because it's going to force people to innovate when you have somebody come up. Go for it.
So think about it. We just talked on some other show, the other videos that we did. How many riders are riding injured because the lifespan is so short? If you knew that you had, like you said, look at Brayton, look at Chad Reed, look at those guys that have elongated their career. What's the only thing that allows them to elongate their career? The potential to earn money on the backside of your career. So now you bring a series in that says, hey, look, there's guaranteed money. If you're just, let's say you're fresh into the pro ranks and you're like, okay, wait a second, I'm going to take a full year to get back healthy because I made so much money last year, I can afford to take this year off. And if I come back healthy, my potential of earnings is that much better. Do you see how it reverses the entire psychology?
Mm-hmm.
Looking at a Supercross series that was completely obliterated by athletes riding injured until they couldn't ride anymore.
And the biggest, conditioning is, I believe, what potentially could happen. Is this is the problem why there hasn't been no riders union or anything in Supercross and motocross, and is the condition. Ever since amateurs, you've been conditioned that you pay to race, and and you're really not worth that much. I know that's a shitty way of going about it, but it's like you don't bite the hand that potentially feeds you because you don't want to miss the opportunity. But now if you've got a bunch of riders that are being conditioned that, hey, it's you pay me to race and go from there, it's going to be very difficult for them then to go to another series that now is requiring them to sign up for entry fees and blah, 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 blah. So
well, Johnny, they've taken the amateur platform and just called it pro. They didn't change anything. When I played Little League Baseball, I had to pay a sign-up fee. Do Major League Baseball players have to pay it? No. They've gone professional. They're the show. They never switched it. These guys that promote both events, they just said, okay, well, here it is.
That's why I feel it's very important that we needed to have a big entity like this hedge fund come in to be able to create a new series at a different way to kind of make the rules, because that's how you get anything done, is you got to have a political power of any sorts in order to make big changes for things, for the ideology of people to change their minds. And I know, go for it, Rob.
Well, it goes right in line with what you were saying. If you look at the contract, each race team will be fined $100,000 a race if there's not sufficient representation on the track. So think about this. If you're the owner of Smart Tops, you have a vested interest to have an athlete that's going to be durable enough to go the distance, or there's a financial ramification for your team. Do you see how there's a paradigm shift on both the front and the backside?
Now you're going to hire a test rider that is going to be a backup rider. So it's not going to be a fill-in no more. It's going to be a paid spot. May it not be like the most paid spot, but you're still going to have a B rider. That's just in case somebody that's tested the bike, that knows about the bike, that's ready to hop on the bike at any moment. Like that, honestly, is a very good thing for the sport.
Absolutely. So you've got a backup rider that's making $50,000 a year. Should the top guy who's making $250,000 get injured, the worst he goes back to is $50,000. The guy at $50,000 goes to $250,000. The team has representation. The series has full representation. The sponsors have full representation. And now you've kept everybody in the loop that allows this guy to come back and get healthy instead of racing injured. And then we don't, a lot of people don't realize if your contract is X amount of dollars, because they take your contract, not all contracts are this way, but take the contract value, divide it by the number of races, and every race that you don't show up to, you get docked 1/17 of your salary. So essentially it's an appearance fee. Well, unfortunately, fortunately for Kyle Chisholm, Star Yamaha is getting penalized because they have no bikes on the track in the 250 class. It's less expensive to hire Kyle Chisholm than to pay the penalty for Monster not having bikes on the track. Well, you look at the World Supercross Series, they're looking at all these scenarios going, okay, well, we just won't even let that happen. Here's the requirement. Here's the penalty. And to your point, Johnny, now you've got Smart Tops that goes out and doesn't hire 2 guys. They hire 5 guys, 6 guys, because you have to have 2 250s, 2 450s.
Well, and then you wouldn't have what happened with the Rocky Butler team with the KTM, where it's like, hey, can somebody please ride this bike? Please ride this bike. It's like you've got somebody, boom, right here. That
but what was the attrition rate? I don't know how many mechanics. I'm assuming 2 mechanics, Savachi, McElrath, Anstey, 3 riders, 3 mechanics, truck driver, all the ancillary, 6, 8 individuals are unemployed. The Rocky Mountain, the company themselves is not on the track getting repped. Fly is not getting repped with gear. KTM's not getting repped with the OEM. And it goes on and on. Guts, all the guys that go down to the miscellaneous parts. What's the domino effect? The World Supercross is going, hey, what issues have we been dealing with? Hurt riders, no representation, sponsors not happy, blah, blah, blah. 35 variables. And they go, how do we fix that? Well, we'll guarantee the money, but you got to guarantee you got to have the representation. You got to guarantee no matter what, we have a full gate. Chris, it goes back to what you said. You make money on your side. We make money on our side. Whole sport elevates. Everybody is talking about this subject. Now a team has a chance to get paid to go racing versus, hey, we're going to spend X amount of money to go racing. I mean, we could do an entire show on this all in its own subject.
We've already spent like 30 minutes on it, it's kind of funny how this show dynamically changed to this subject, which is an incredibly important subject that I think we're all going to be talking about more and more. But the reason like why Feld, and you pointed this out, Cooksey, in one of your videos, is it's funny at Utah they were like, hey, world championship, like last minute, let's just throw that in there. And it's because they're scared. Anytime that you talk, same thing why Rob, you were talking about when I was talking about parts and crap, like when it became a big hoot hot ha, it was because there was some merit behind what was being said. And this is Feld trying to cover up what's going on. Some of my conversations with the people at motocross has been, hey, this sucks because they're stepping on our toes and they're not kind of putting us in here. And so it's going to make for some interesting things. And I'm super pumped for it because I would love to see a World Supercross championship. Like I'm big into MXGP. However, I still don't watch every round like I do the motocross stuff. And I still would prefer Supercross over motocross just because of the format itself. It's more fun to watch racing that's 20 minutes rather than racing that's almost 40 minutes. So because it's just closer racing.
Which do you prefer in regards to Supercross, Triple Crown or non-Triple Crown?
Truthfully, I like the Triple Crown more, but I think the point structure needs to change because if it was the last race, everyone is kind of phoning it in because they already know what their overall is and everything. If they had some incentives behind there, whether it be money or bonus points, then I think it would make it more exciting because as for a viewer, you want to see, again, this is me kind of shitting on a little bit of the privateers, because this whole video has been about privateers, so that's not my point, but I'm going to say it as like a fan. As a fan, you want to see the top guys racing all the time. So them being on the track multiple times is just more entertaining for the privateers. And if you can get the privateers to be closer on the same level of equipment, well, they're going to be up there running up front, because I do truthfully believe that there's a lot of privateers that you take almost any of the guys that we've talked about and you give them ample time to be on a motorcycle that is a factory motorcycle, that they have preparation. They might not win, but some of them might, and the majority of them would be top 10, top 5. So I think that at this level, whether, Cooksey, you want to talk about it, amateur baseball, you give these top riders, even the privateers, the right equipment. I think it's more about money at this level than anything is kind of my whole belief behind things. And it's not entirely becoming that way, because now you've got the facilities and then you've got these riders that are just constantly riding and working together, so where they've got more resources, which again kind of goes back to money. So of course they're going to come to a track and be better off because they practice this stuff all the time. Doesn't mean they're really more talented, just means that they're more prepared and they put more hours into defining their craft, which is, because of this World Supercross, we're absolutely going to see a definition between motocross riders and supercross riders. And then you're going to see teams that do not do both. You're going to see teams that just focus on supercross or motocross. And I'm talking about MXGP and here in America. They're going to define themselves with, we're supercross effort. We know how to set up a supercross bike. We don't give a fuck about motocross. Or this is motocross. We don't worry about supercross. Boom. This is what we're doing.
Well, and that's what we were talking about, the supercross only, outdoor only. That's the future. It's a split. It's 2 separate sports.
It is becoming 2 separate sports. We're at the we live in a fabulous time when it comes to this, is because we're watching the sport kind of grow, and it is crumbling itself a little bit, but it has to. I guess think about it as kind of like a cocoon. You know, it's building into something much bigger. And you can't argue, like, I know I've talked a lot about, hey, like the sport is kind of killing itself. Well, hey, we've got something popping up that's the World Supercross that's going on a world scale. So you can't say that anymore. Yeah, maybe some of the stuff here in America might be dwindling a little bit when it comes to, I guess, motocross. And you, as much as it sucks to say that, you're moving from Peacock to Mav TV, that it's very difficult to find. You're just losing stuff. And World Supercross, we've got a giant hedge fund out here that's willing to put big money at. Now we've got the platform to have big sponsors come in to try to continue to build this up. Like, I look at F1 and I see Crypto.com, I see Bybit, I see these exchanges that have billions upon billions of dollars to invest into this form of racing. Supercross even, I don't see any of that stuff. Like, yeah, we had, I don't even know what the crypto exchange was that really wasn't really an exchange, but it's silly. You know, we just get second fiddle in everything, and that's kind of the problem. And so really this is great news for even privateers to have more opportunities for this stuff.
And I this is what I've been screaming about for years, how they've built their business plan on a house of cards. It's Outdoor Nationals is all dependent on participation from the manufacturers. And, you know, Davey Coombs and MX Sports thinks that I'm being hard on them and singling them out. I'm really trying to help. Like, if they had done a profit share and made it a more valuable thing, I'm not saying that World Supercross wouldn't come and be successful. I'm saying then it splinters off into become its own sport. Right now, it's at a really touch and go point. And I don't want to see outdoor motocross go away. I love outdoor motocross. I love watching 4 hours of racing. I love seeing who's the most fit guy out there, who isn't, you know, and it's durable. You gotta be a badass to do Outdoor Nationals, and I don't want to see it go away.
Cooksey, what it looks like is kind of happening is you've got MotoGP for street bikes, and then you've got our Superbike platform here, where nobody really follows it as much as they do MotoGP. Well, it looks like motocross is kind of dwindling into the American series that used to be the main big hoo-hot, but now it's not. And I don't know how it would save itself, but again, this is going to force people that are in positions of power to have to change the way they do things, redefine stuff, try to make it better fit for the manufacturers, because if I'm Honda or Yamaha and I think I can sell more motorcycles by going to World Supercross or MotoGP rather than motocross, either I'm going to cut my funding or I'm just going to get out and I'm going to go somewhere else. And that's the big nail in the coffin, is you can't have those guys leave. So how do you keep them there?
Well, I'm going to go a different direction just ever so slightly. First of all, there's no way that an investor at that magnitude is investing in something that he thinks he's going to lose money. Johnny, your whole investment side of the world, there's nobody, no matter how much money you have, there's no investor out there that's going to invest going, you know what, I'm totally cool with the net loss. They're only looking at the model, understanding that eventually they're going to get that back plus. So keep that in mind.
Unless they're getting something big from it.
Well, exactly. I mean, it doesn't matter what semantics you want to play on it. Nobody's going to do it just to run at a loss, right? Not when you're a billionaire. Going back, the reason why I was asking you, which one do you prefer? Do you prefer the Triple Crown? I haven't talked to anybody who doesn't prefer the Triple Crown.
The riders don't, but that's because the incentives aren't there.
Well, okay, so
and nobody likes Cooksey. Cooksey, put your hand down. What the fuck are you doing? We're raising your hand over there saying
you said you never met anyone. You met me. I don't like the Triple Crown as much as regular.
All right, okay. So in all fairness, why don't you like the Triple Crown?
Because it doesn't build anticipation. You peak in the first moto.
But it goes back to what Johnny said.
There. That's the
if you changed it, and that's I said, if you change it, I might like it. But
and that's what Johnny's saying. Let every moto be a points weighted moto, not the
and
overall
have random
points.
Gate pick on everything. You know.
Well,
so
here's my
I'm fine
here's
with
my suggestion though, Johnny. Instead of random gate pick, you run only 10 guys at a factory level. Top 5 go to the main event. Run a privateer only, top 10 guys, 5 top out of the 10 go to a main event. On weekend number 1, KTM provides us 10 bikes. Bone stock, all you can do is adjust the stock settings. IROC Race of Champions. Next weekend, we go to a Triple Crown. Everybody runs a stock Kawasaki. The next weekend, we run stock Hondas. Next weekend, we run... Now you have your
there's
factory
no way
guys.
of testing that stuff. I feel like that is kind of making sometimes maybe it more dangerous. And I'm a big okay. So Chanel, their purses or whatever, they say that the keynote to success is simplicity. If you can make it more simple in a way of not like really rattling the things, that's where I feel like things would make a difference. Where potentially starting something small with a bonus point here or there, or
But what's the frustration of our privateers? We can't compete against a factory bike.
That's why they need to add like a whole nother class there, not
exactly.
changing the where literally the B class in Loretta is now moved to the professional class, where hey, this is the stock class, which is just a smaller...
But you still haven't leveled out the B class at Loretta's. That's where I'm getting at is, hey, we're in a sport of racing with motors. We know there's always going to be he who has the most money wins, right? The three of us would agree upon 100%. He who has the most money wins.
Majority, I guess...
Give or take a little bit.
Semantically, yeah. You are absolutely right. Now you're putting it in a perspective, like, having a, I believe like MotoGP does this, where they've got, one of their classes is owned by, hey, we're all on KTMs and this is the tire we're using and blah, 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 blah. That I feel like would work for, and then you have all the factories looking at those guys to hire them for their teams into the works class and stock class. I've had conversations with Coombs about this, about, hey, could we have on Sunday have the privateer class go, with like a work kind of a thing. And then he talks about how much more money it's going to cost with having the TV crew there and some other stuff on there. But
are we looking at the immediate ROI? Or are we looking at the long term of the growth of the sport? what is the number one frustration? You're not going to be able to work out of a privateer, sprinter van, motorhome, fun mover, 18-wheeler. You're not going to bridge. What did we say earlier? We have 12 factory 450s and 16 250s. Mm-hmm. Let the factories run against the factories. Let the privateers run against the privateers, because we're never going to compete against the factory guys. We're okay with that. But the idea that the prize money goes to the factory bikes, that doesn't make any sense. If you go back to what we were saying, two separate races all together. And like you said, let this division be, hey, you continue to dominate over here, just like an MXGP, MotoGP, Formula 1, Formula 2, Formula 3. Nobody just decides to ruck up and goes to Formula 1. You've got to go through a process, validate yourself. Yeah, you may have to bring some sponsorship money along the way.
Or like a giant hedge fund to where you can have your kid race. But I know the irony there is a little bit. No, my point is, what I brought up to Coombs was, hey, would you think about potentially how would this even work with, okay, just your point. You've got 12 factory 450 guys, and then you've got, what did you say, 15 250 guys, 16?
Yeah, 12 and 16, yep.
12 and 16. So you don't even have a full gate of factory bikes. But, we have close to 30. Let's have that be the works class. And you could run a 250, you could run a 450, whatever you want to do, because arguably, like, we look at lap times with 250s and 450s, they're fairly close.
Comparable. Yep.
Whatever. You do that, and then now it leads you up to a privateer class to do exactly that, where you're not changing the dynamic a whole lot, but you're just helping all the other teams survive. I think that's...
I go back to Formula 1. Why do they have Formula 1, 42, Formula 2, and Formula 3? It's just, the idea is you can't get to 1 without going to 2. You can't get to 2 without going, and that's the part I don't understand. That's why I'm saying...
And they've got incentives for teams. The worst team ends up getting the most wind tunnel time, and they get some more incentives so that they're not constantly this gap of this old team moving on and on and on.
Take something as benign as pit placement. If you ruck up in a sprinter van, where are you? Mm-hmm. You're in the left 40 out there in no man's land. So you're like listening to the radio, trying to make sure you're not late for practice. It seems benign until you're the guy that's in the sprinter van that's in the left 40 out there. It's almost like you get ostracized for showing up. We take your money, we take your registration, we take your COVID test money, we take all your money from you.
And your sponsor, nobody gets viewed because who's going to walk over there to see you?
Again, Formula 3,
how do you feel about
Formula
this?
2, Formula 1.
How do you feel about this, Dr. Fauci? Because I feel like we're going very left, where everyone needs to be included. I feel like you should like this, right?
No, stop. No,
I'm sorry.
I like it, but I love your idea, Coach, but I mean, it's hard enough to determine who's actually factory and who's not. So I don't know how you'd have a privateer race versus a non-factory.
Well, I mean, we just had that argument.
I think you just go off of funding.
Minutes ago.
Yeah. But I'm just saying. Funding. Yeah, that's pretty hard. I don't know.
I mean, the Smart Tops Honda team has to make a decision. Hey, are we going to be privateer, no factory support, or are we going to be in the gate that has factory support?
I want to know what
incentive do the factories even have?
That's exactly it. That's my question. Goes back to what Hopper said. Where is the incentive for both sides of the coin to make an executive decision? Are you on gate A or are you on gate B? See, that's where we've convoluted the subject. We have guys that are Rylan Munson, who's driving across the country, getting help for 3 or 4 people, which we love. We totally appreciate.
And that's where all the money's coming from. The sport is the guys buying the bikes and doing that sort of thing. It's not the Eli.
It's the grassroots, right? I mean, I hate to say it.
And if this is a production series, it should be focusing on the production privateers and stuff, not they're treating it kind of like F1, but it's not F1. It's the farthest thing from it, because we've got that production rule here. I want to know, and this is what I've been trying to get invited into, some of those conversations that are happening behind closed doors on what to do with this stuff. But I think none of us are going to get invited into those kind of conversations. But again, MX
Sports consults with me regularly on what I think. I'm kidding. They do not. They do not.
But the meeting that happens every year at Daytona, just to talk about the future of this stuff. I know we've all gotten like shitty messages from the people that run Supercross and whatnot. But again, people have listened in a roundabout way because questions are being asked and things are changing, and we're gonna see the head of it when what happens in September. Could you imagine? Everyone is praying for this. At least Feld and MX Sports is praying for the World Supercross to be a giant flop, and it might not really take on for a couple years to get their footing in. But again, you were talking about the hedge funds and blah blah blah. They have 5 years to make this work. They've got $50 million, and they're saying, hey, we need to make this happen in 5 years. There's going to be some growing pains, obviously, but we're going to see some massive changes inside of 5 years is really where I think things are going to happen. And go for it. We'll do an ending clip by both of you, and I know what I said was going to be 20 minutes has now been 80 minutes. So what's your final thoughts?
Well, think about this. Who are the guys that are behind this World Supercross series? I don't remember the names. Chris, who's the guy that created US Open?
Well, Pernard, I don't know if Pernard's behind it, but
yeah, it is. He is.
He is. Adam Bailey, I believe,
and
is also.
Ryan Sanderson and Tony.
Okay. So I don't know. I'm not a historian of the US Open, but I remember correct me if I'm wrong, it was $100,000 at the MGM Grand at the US Open. Am I correct?
100,000 to win.
What year was that?
That would have been 1998.
98 to 2022, offering $100,000 in 98. The same guy that's obviously gone out. What's his name? Pernard?
Eric Pernard.
Pernard. He's evidently gone out, found a very wealthy investor. Everything Pernard has touched has been successful.
Oh, guy's brilliant.
Brilliant, right? So you look at that, like Johnny was just saying, is this going to be successful? There is no doubt in my mind, 100% it will be successful. Now, Chris and Johnny, correct me if I'm wrong. Where did the Monster Cup come from?
US Open.
Thank you. Now, I don't know how much was paid for it. I don't know how much Pernard sold it for. It moved to Vegas. It became an outdoor Supercross instead of an indoor at the MGM Grand. What is this going to grow into? Because like I told you, there's no way that this private investor is going to invest in somebody who doesn't have a track record of success. And what'd you say the number is, Johnny? 5 million? 5 billion?
How much they have assets under management, or what the deal?
They're investing
$50 million for 5 years.
Yeah,
50
for 5 years.
$10 million commitment for 5 years to a tune of total of $50 million isn't going to be laid down if it isn't based on a track record of success.
Yeah, and if you've got $246 billion, I kind of look at this is home run money for them is what there is they are betting fairly large, but not large enough so that they go under on something. But this could be turn 1% into 10% of their portfolio of owning something that's a global sport as opposed to what might happen. So, I mean, there's a lot going on here.
It's not hard to figure out what's the capacity of MGM Grand. Do you know, Chris, being in Vegas?
I don't. I think it's around 10 to 15.
And what's the Vegas venue?
Sam Boyd, probably 20, maybe 19.
So that percentage of growth is not significant, 10 to maybe 15, maybe 20.
Yeah, so, I'm ballparking. I really don't know, though.
I don't know off the top of my head either. Yeah. You know, Google Johnny over there could probably figure it out pretty quick. But,
no, Johnny, you're fine.
But the idea here is... But you think about it. It went from an indoor event at MGM Grand that got essentially bought out and converted to the Monster Cup with a $1 million purse at a Vegas outdoor venue based off of a concept of going to MGM Grand with $100,000 winner takes all. Where's this series going to end up?
I don't think they actually bought it out, Coach. I believe they stopped running I believe they sold the U.S. Open, or Pernard did.
Okay.
Somebody else took over. It didn't do so good, and they let it die, and then they just started something
Gotcha.
similar out there.
Gotcha.
I don't know the details for sure. And the World Supercross, watch, okay, this is going to crack people up, because the first year, you're going to see all the media that's tied in together and hooked with our current U.S. promotions, bagging on it, and they're going to make fun of it. They're going to say, "Oh, it's a bunch of old riders and this and that." It's going to take 3 years to get riders out of their current contracts to give them an opportunity to go over there to get the elite riders. So to judge it on 1 or 2 years, you can't.
Well, look at the PGA.
And they're like conditioning the riders to start thinking something else, because this is one of those things that's bad news is an investor's best friend, is because you want people to dog on shit. You want people to, because nobody will. And riders need to think of this as like, how do I get over here? Like guys like Ryan Brees are the ones that could potentially be making a good move for their career, that is by trying to get on board something like this early on.
Well, you look at McElroy, and he's over here bad-mouthing Phil Mickelson from going over there. And literally today he was quoted as saying, well, maybe I was a little out of context. Maybe I didn't realize the vision of the Saudi series. Why? Because this weekend's $25 million purse, right? Money talks and bullshit walks. So all of a sudden, if you're over here being told with all these restrictions from PGA, what you can do, what you can't do, and this is how much you can make, and these guys over here are saying, wait a second, this isn't a model that's sustainable. Let's come over here and try and do it differently. When all of a sudden McElroy realizes I can make X amount more than I'm doing now. It's amazing how his narrative changed pretty darn quickly. Something to think about.
It is.
Absolutely.
It is.
You call it the house of cards. PGA's been sitting there pretty much as a monopoly for quite a long time, not redistributing the money.
And that's why I feel that that quote that I said is never get in a fight with somebody that has nothing to lose.
Nothing to lose.
I feel motocross is kind of getting in that position right now, where they really need to do something. And Supercross is, we'll see how well the World Supercross does, but this is putting a lot of pressure on a lot of big individuals, where we'll see, again, they need to innovate or they're going to lose literally everything.
And think about this, Johnny. Coming from a business background, I grew up in the grocery industry. I'm not into redistribution of wealth. Absolutely, I'm not. But what is wrong with an employee stock option program, an ESOP program, as Chris was saying earlier? The company generates X amount of revenue, profit at the end of the year, redistributed into the shareholders. If the company makes $1 million and there's 1 million shares, everybody makes $1.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
but
you make a good point, is like you could start be doing that with even some of the teams, and you could keep the riders there, is where it's like how more how 401ks work.
That's
you go,
exactly
hey,
it.
You're going to be invested, but you're only 20% invested your first year. You're 40% your second year. You have to be here for 5 years before you keep all that money. They could do some form of that to try to keep the riders from moving to another series, and it might keep enough incentive for riders to be like, you know what, I'm going to, because I'm making some more money. So again, this all I don't see this being a bad thing. I see this being a good thing for everybody winning, because you're taking a centralized organization and you're having to force them to not be so greedy and try to change things in order to stay alive, and try different things, because if they try different things, something might work and stick, and it might work out even better for them as well. Because truthfully, the sport of motocross and supercross doesn't need Feld. It doesn't need MX Sports. There's always going to be, I keep saying always, right? So hypothetically, there's always going to be guys riding motorcycles. And if those two series go under, something else is going to start up, and it's going to be different, because you're still going to have the riders. The problem with those entities is if they don't have the riders, the centralized organization goes under. Their power is gone. So again, this is back what you were saying, Cooksey, is you need to take care of your riders, or else you kind of lose everything that you've built. And it all starts with, first you have the privateers pop out. Then the next thing you're going to do is you're going to have the factories pop out, because they're going to be like, well, nobody's buying bikes anymore. Nobody's doing this. They're not showing up to this stuff. We're moving on to something else where it is. So it'll be that downward spiral. But again, the winner in all of this is us.
But think about what Chris said. When Chris talks about sharing the wealth, the keyboard warriors say, oh, you're into redistribution of wealth. You don't understand how much cost it is to run a series. That's not what we're saying. If I'm running a business against Johnny and Chris, and I'm trying to find a way to retain my employees, I've got to incentivize them. You incentivize them by saying, look, at the end of the year, we made X amount of millions of dollars. We're going to split that up by how many shareholders. Because we, as a group, were successful, you get to reap the financial rewards of that by redistribution of the profit, not redistributing wealth, redistributing profit.
Sharing of success.
People, exactly. That's what an employee stock option program is about. Johnny, you mentioned 401k. Same exact idea. Get employees to pay, stay, and refer. Hey, you want to come work here? It's great. It's awesome. If we got very, very successful racers, hey, come race this series. You get paid very well. You get taken care of. You're appreciated, right? You're allowed to go out and market yourself. Everything that you capture on your GoPro is yours. You can go ahead and use it to market yourself so you become a household name like Hamilton and F1 that I've never heard of before till the Netflix series. See, people like to villainize Chris like,
sorry, I was going back to my Schumacher joke here, but I'm like, I even know who.
But people will say
that I don't know shit.
But people will say Chris is like, oh, you just want to take the money from the promoters and give it to someone else. No, you didn't listen to what he said. He's saying after all the costs, because we know there's a shitload of money that's spent to run a series. We respect that. We're in the business world. The three of us are in the business world. We're not naive. After realistic,
and nobody's going to do anything for free. And obviously, if the person is controlling it, it's the reason why the boss makes the most money. And the guy cleaning the dishes that potentially might be working the hardest makes the least amount of money, right? There's something that.
But it's about risk, not about exchanging dollars for hours spent. It's the risk. The owner of the company goes out and gets a $1 million note with no guarantee that people are going to show up and buy his product to make enough margin to pay that note back. Nobody understands the sleepless nights of that guy or that girl going, shit, I just got a $1 million loan. How am I going to pay that back? So for the promoters out there, we get it. Not inflated, not embellished, not stealing from Peter to pay Paul, not doubling up on expenses. Realistic expenses. After that's done, whatever profit is left, again, I want those that have stuck with us this far, ESOP, Employee Stock Option Program. Share the wealth of a profit after expenses, redistribute. That's exactly what World Supercross has done. Now, yes, they have a big investor behind it, but that investor isn't going to get behind it if the model doesn't make sense.
Yeah, they put up $50 million for potentially a lack of $1 billion in return. Is what they're hoping for, and what they're going to put a lot of pressure on in order to have it happen. Like, really, the investor is the guy that is not putting it in the work. He's just going, boom, okay, you guys make it happen now.
Yeah.
But closing thoughts, or are we pretty much closed out on